Hey everybody, welcome to my what the f is going on with all of my Tupperware video. Okay, I'm kidding. Take two. Welcome to my why the hell can't I match any lids to any of my Tupperware containers video. So about a week ago I reached into my container closet to grab a container for something, and I finally just got fed up with having like a gazillion lids and a gazillion containers and not being able to match any lids to any containers. It was very frustrating. So I finally just decided I was going to grab all my containers, all my lids, all my girlfriend's containers, all her lids, and create mates for everything. And then I was going to recycle the superfluous containers and lids. Like many of you, I'm familiar with what I like to call the big four of Tupperware containers. There's Tupperware, Rubbermaid, Ziploc, and Glad. Those are pretty much like the major players in the plastic container industry. But during this journey, I figured out that there are a lot more. For instance, Dixie, Starcast, Anchor Hocking, Sterilite, Frigidaire, American Made, Lock, Betty Crocker, and even Kraft and Velveeta. Also, there's a bevy of miscellaneous non-branded containers out there, what I like to call just generic containers. So I decided the best way to facilitate organization was to create piles based on brand, size, and shape. And then once everything was kind of organized and categorized, then I would go through the big pile of lids, and then I would try to find the mating lids for those containers. This system seemed to work pretty good, but it was really time consuming. One thing I observed was that Rubbermaid seemed to have an over-the-top variety of containers. Now during the organizational / pairing process, I had found roughly 30 different variety of Rubbermaid containers. But after we had purged all the lids that weren't matching any of the containers, we had whittled it down considerably. I personally don't need 40 different size containers. I think like 5 would do. This entire center section is comprised of all Rubbermaid containers. All these on the left are Glad, and then over here on the right are these Ziploc containers. So at this point I started thinking, well, what can I do to prevent this kind of mess from happening again? What I came up with was to just get rid of the huge amount of variety of containers that I had. So then it boiled down to a choice. Which brand of container worked best for me? So let's explore that answer now. First off, it was clear that Rubbermaid was not going to work for me. There's just too many different varieties of container. I don't need that many varieties. How many varieties of Rubbermaid do you think there are? 6? 9? Nope. After purging all of the orphan lids and containers, we were able to come up with 17 different varieties of Rubbermaid containers. I noticed some fitment issues with some of the Tupperware containers. Like this lid no longer fits on this container. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to get the lid. It doesn't fit anymore. I don't know if it's because of multiple washings or what the problem is, but this lid no longer fits on this container. Another issue I found a bit vexing was this isn't quite square. It's not rectangular, but it's not square, so the lid doesn't fit this way. You've got to fit it this way. I had actually thrown these two items in the garbage because the lid didn't fit, but then realized that if you turn it 90 degrees, the lid does fit. This is Rubbermaid, by the way. Okay, so now let's look at Glad. Between me and my girlfriend, we were able to come up with 7 different varieties of Glad container. But as you can see, they are guilty of what I like to call product permutation, where they create an almost exact duplicate of their product or an updated model for apparently no reason. I can't see any advantage this container has over this one, yet their lids do not interchange. So this is why you run out of lids all the time, because you think this lid would fit on this, but it doesn't. And this lid doesn't fit on this one. Now they have this one sort of indexed. You have kind of a fat part here and a skinny part here, so it doesn't fit this way. You have to actually install the lid correctly, but I see no advantage to that. I would honestly rather just have this. It's a simpler design, so it must be cheaper to manufacture, therefore cheaper to sell. Who knows why they do that? Marketing would be my guess. Also worth noting, this version has a little divot sticking out, so it's not really stackable. This is stackable. So why not combine these two and have just a regular round lid that's stackable? Also worth noting, which is kind of a big deal, none of the Glad containers stack. If you look, that little divot sticks up and makes it kind of wobbly. I won't say it's non-stackable, but it doesn't feel very solid. I don't like it at all. I like this design, flat. Even this little teeny one, you can't even stack that little one. See, it's flat there, doesn't stack there. I guess you could say these Glad containers stink because they suffer from flatulence. Get stink? Flatulence? Worth noting, I was able to push the divot in. I don't know if you can see that. So now it's stackable, but I don't know if it was designed to do that. It doesn't really look like it. It looks like this thing is out of round now, so I'm putting stress. If you look, it doesn't really like. Let's get a container. Here's one. Seal this up. There you go. I just broke the lid pushing down the divot. That's demerits for Glad in my book. And now let's look at Ziploc. So as you can see, between me and my girlfriend, we were able to come up with 7 varieties of Ziploc container. Here's something that's kind of funny. You'll notice Ziploc has 2 permutations of this rectangular container. You can see this one's a little more roundish. This one's a little more squarish, right? But here's the funny part. These roundish lids will fit on the square container. So look at that. I guess the lid kind of pushes the edges out. So good on you, Ziploc. And unlike the Glad containers, these are all perfectly stackable. There's no problem stacking these guys. Alright, so what can we conclude from all of today's tests? It's pretty much a shoo-in who's going to win this, but let's run through the reasons. Rubbermaid has too many containers, too many permutations that require a specific lid, and fitment issues. How about Glad? Glad is non-stackable, and they have different permutations that require different specific lids. The winner is Ziploc. Why? Because Ziploc has a very small variety of containers. They are able to share lids across different container permutations, and they're very stackable. So some of you might be asking, why didn't I review Tupperware? Well, we didn't have enough samples. I think between me and my girlfriend we had like 5 containers, but it's kind of expensive, and I think they kind of over-engineer some of their stuff, but you know, that's just me. Also worth noting, I recommend square containers over round ones. I see no advantage to having round containers. So if you stick with square Ziploc containers, you should be happy for the rest of your life and never have to go through CMD, which is container madness disease. So at this point you're probably wondering what I did with all the orphan containers and lids. What a pile, eh? But of course, everything was recycled responsibly. So I got home and it was clear that I ended up with too many containers. So I called up Patty and I said, hey, I got an idea. How about I bring the containers back, we kind of figure out who gets what, and then I'll throw some of them away, some of the older containers. Initially, I thought I would split everything down the middle, you know, half containers for me, half for her. But then in retrospect, I think it would be better if she takes one brand and I take another brand. That way we don't get into the same situation of having multiple brands of the same exact container. I had actually hoped to end this video with nice footage of our newly organized container cabinets, but it's an ongoing process. We're on like day 3 now and we're still trying to figure it out, so maybe I'll just come up with a subsequent video. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe down below and send me money if you want.